it is my honor to serve this congregation as its minister. Whether you are on Zoom or here in this church sanctuary, we are so glad to have you with us this evening. No matter how old or how young you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, however you identify and whomever you love, know that you are welcome here. Our opening words this evening are by Reverend Erica Hewitt. First comes the waiting. This is the season of endings and beginnings, when the small signs of dawn pierce through the night and something new is born. But first comes the waiting. First come the lessons of endings and beginnings. The presence of life, the sheltering spirit of love, grieves with those sweeping up the debris of loss, waits with those who restlessly reach out for change, grants us courage in the night to guard each other's dreams for this holy, wondrous universe. Grant us, O universe unfolding in mystery, a sense of your timing. May we loosen our grip on that which doesn't serve us, leaving behind that which we have outworn or outgrown. Teach us the lessons of beginnings. Remind us that such waitings and endings may be a starting place. A planting of seeds which brings to birth what is ready to be born. Something right and just and different. A new song, a deeper relationship, a fuller love in the fullness of time.
In legend upon legend and story after story, Christmas always begins not with daybreak and the coming of the morning, but at midnight. It was at midnight that the primitive observances began.
It was in the darkest hour of midnight, not in the glow of morning, that shepherds of the legend heard angels sing. And of course, the wise men were guided not by the sun, but by a star.
The legends have grown both beautiful and fanciful, yet they have never drifted out of the darkness into a premature daylight. They have stayed quite close to the inner truth from which they draw their substance, the truth that we must find our faith, not in the daylight, but in the dark.
If we ever come to the light of morning, we must carry our own light with us through the night. Yes, and not only so, but we must meet our darkness too, and sing them first at midnight.
We must proclaim in the desert a highway when there is no way at all, not even a path or a trail. We must, and evidently we can. That is the ground of hope, that we can.
Here is something that goes right back to the beginning, farther than thought can reach, back into the primitive from which we come.
Here is something that journeys through the centuries, born by the faith and the courage of the race. Here is something that beckons to us also from the future, that belongs to the very nature of the human spirit, because it belongs to the nature of life itself.
It kindles a light, and no matter how small it is, the darkness cannot put it out. It says, Be not afraid. The good and the true are stronger than anything that stands against them, and sooner or later will prevail. The darkness is vast, truly, but across it there is a path of light, a path of moving light.
It is we who have carried the light. It is we who must carry that light, for it burns resolutely within us, even in these darkest days. It burns deep within us, and we seek to give it external sign of the inner reality.
And so we kindle this, our flame of truth, of hope, and love, for all to see and to celebrate.
There is Something About Christmas by Joseph Rinaldi. There is something about Christmas in Santa Claus and twinkling trees, in the joy and laughter of every child, people kneeling in prayer on arthritic knees. There is something about Christmas. Though many wishes and dreams may fail, it is something we have learned to accept through each Yuletide trail. There is something about Christmas, something that overwhelms the heart, and it is displayed in every household of thoughtful and gentle people miles apart. There is something about Christmas, a magnificent day for old and young, for it seems that people are more pleasant when the traditional carols are sung. There is something about Christmas, a day of grace and visions of peace, and nothing on earth can destroy it. Joy and peace on earth will never cease. There is something about Christmas, when church bells ring and candles glow, signaling that Christ was born in a manger in the holy city of Bethlehem years ago.
Our opening carol tonight is It Came Upon a Midnight Clear. You will find the words on the back of your order of service, so please rise in body or spirit and join us.
Thousand years of Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. By Francis B. Church, editor of the New York Sun, 1897. Dear editor, I am 8 years old. Some of my little friends say there is no Santa Claus. Papa says if you see it in the sun, it's so. Please tell me the truth. Is there a Santa Claus? Virginia O'Hanlon. Virginia, your little friends are wrong. They have been affected by skepticism of a skeptical age. They do not believe except what they see. They think that nothing can be which is not comprehensible to their minds. All minds, Virginia, whether they're grown up or children's, are little in this great universe of ours. A person is a mere insect, an ant, in intellect as compared with the boundless world. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. Santa exists as certainly as love and generosity and devotion exist. Giving to your life the highest beauty of joy, alas, how dreary a world it would be if there were no Santa Claus. As dreary as if there were no Virginias. Not to believe in Santa Claus, you might as well not believe in fairies. Nobody sees Santa Claus, but that's not a sign that there is no Santa Claus. The most real things in the world are those that people cannot see. Did you ever see fairies dancing on the lawn? Of course not. But that's not proof that they're not there. Nobody can conceive or imagine of all the wonders there are unseen and unseeable in the world. Oh, faith, poetry, love, romance can push aside the curtain and see the supernal beauty and glory beyond. Is it all real? Ah, Virginia, in all this world there is nothing else real and abiding. No Santa Claus? Thank God. Santa lives forever and ever. 1,000 years from now, Virginia, nay, 10,000 years from now, Santa will continue to make glad every heart of every child.
Let's sing Here Comes Santa Claus. So please rise and join in. Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane. Vixen and Blitzen and all his reindeer pulling on the reins. Bells all ringing, children singing, all is merry and bright. So hang your stockings and say your prayers, Santa Claus comes tonight. Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane. He's gonna bring his magic down that chimney once again. Hear those sleigh bells jingle, jangle, oh what a beautiful sight. So jump in bed and cover your head, 'cause Santa Claus comes tonight. Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane. He'll come around with chimes ring out, it's Christmas time again. Peace on earth will come to all if we just follow the light. So let's give thanks for family and friends, as Santa Claus comes tonight.
For So the Children Come by Sophia Faz, or Lion Faz, a writer, teacher, and theologian who shaped Unitarian and UU religious education for many, many decades. Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping. For so the children come, and so they have been coming, always in the same way they come, born of the seed of humanity. No angels herald their beginnings. No prophets predict their future courses. No wise men see a star to show where to find the babe that will save humankind. Yet each night a child is born is a holy night. Parents sitting beside their children's cribs feel glory in the sight of a new life beginning. They ask, where and how will this new life end, or will it ever end? Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, and a time for worshiping.
And it's time for singing again. So please rise in body or spirit and sing with us. Bring a torch, Jeanette, Isabella.
Bring a torch, Jeanette, Isabella. Bring a torch, come quickly and run. It is Jesus, good folk of the village. Christ is born, and Mary's calling all. Oh, beautiful is the mother. Oh, beautiful is the child. It is wrong when the baby is sleeping. It is wrong to talk so loud. Quiet now as you gather around him, lest your noise should waken Jesus. Hush, hush, see how he sweetly slumbers. Hush, hush, see how he smiles in dreams. Gently now come into the stable, come and see the Holy One. Jesus is a beautiful baby, round his brow, his cheeks so happy. Hush, hush, see how he sweetly slumbers. Hush, hush, see how he smiles in dreams.
It is now time for the offering. The offering this evening will benefit two organizations, Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid Network and Hope for Ukraine. All of the collection will go to these two organizations. Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid Network was originally formed to provide support to asylum seekers bused from Texas to DC. The group continues to support more than 1,500 who have chosen to make the DC area their home as they face federal and local barriers to resettlement. Their work has expanded to include resettlement support for families trying to move out of DC shelters, monthly asylum clinics, prenatal support, and wage theft clinics. Hope for Ukraine is dedicated to improving the quality of life of poor children and youth by providing critical benefits, services, and programs. Hope for Ukraine serves individuals and families of the poorest communities in Ukraine. The organization provides food, medical attention, shelter, and education for Ukrainians whose lives have been devastated because of war. You may donate online by entering your donation as a Sunday offering in the online form. You can also write a check to UCR with Christmas Eve in the memo line and put it in the offering basket or mail it to church. And of course, we'll take cash too. Thank you for your generous support.
Christmas is Subversive by Kendall R. Gibbons. One of the great things about Christmas is that it is a sturdy holiday. Christmas doesn't wimp out when times are hard. It comes anyway. Even if there are hardly any presents, even when there isn't much food to make a feast with, even if you're sad, even if the world around you is at war, even if you are living in fear and danger and oppression, Christmas still comes. And when it comes, Christmas is subversive. Christmas with its story of an unwed mother and a doubtful father, with its legend of a helpless baby born in a stable who was worshipped by some of the wisest, richest men in the world, with its tale of a child pursued by the deadly wrath of kings who escaped as a refugee to a foreign land far from home. Christmas with its ancient and enduring summons of peace on earth, goodwill to all people everywhere. You can't stop a day like that with a little hardship or greed or injustice. It will show up anyway, shining the light of a midnight star into the darkest places of our collective lives. Do not underestimate the power of the manger and the hope it holds. The Christmas song of the angels is not as innocent as it sounds. It has turned the world upside down before now. It still can.
Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing "I Heard the Bells" on Christmas Day.
Our next reading comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verses 1 through 20. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring to you good news that will cause you great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." Suddenly, a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby, who was lying in the manger. And when they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what they have been told about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told.
Let's sing together, O come, Emmanuel. Please rise and join.
When I was in divinity school, my husband Carl and I lived separately, me in Cambridge and he in our house in Ithaca. It was a 3-year period that I refer to as my monastic period. When I was not attending classes or events at school, I spent enormous time by myself in silence. It was a time of deep intensity, of reading, writing, and studying all the time. I was in my 50s, so I wasn't going out partying on the weekends. And aside from my fellow students, many of whom were close to 30 years younger than me, I knew very few people in Cambridge. Silence can be illuminating, it can be reflective, and it can be lonely. As a society, we spend very little time in silence. Most of the time, even when we get chances to be alone, We rarely spend that time quietly. We turn on all sorts of sounds. We turn on the TV, we listen to audiobooks, podcasts, watch shorts on TikTok. There is always sound around us. And with the 24/7 news cycle, we can always be tuned in to the horrors of the world, all the time. It's another form of noise. It is as though we are afraid of our own thoughts. The carol Silent Night a few years ago celebrated its 200th anniversary. Written by a young priest, Joseph Moore, and set to music by Franz Gruber, it has become one of the most famous carols of all time. It has been translated into 300 languages and is sung around the world. Joseph Moore was inspired to write it when, shortly after the destruction and violence of the Napoleonic Wars, he was walking through a local village at night and was inspired by the village, finally at peace. In 1914, during World War I, on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, there was a spontaneous outbreak of peace. An unplanned truce, a break in the fighting. Soldiers across enemy lines exchanged gifts of cigarettes, food, and clothing. "I remember the silence," said one soldier, "the eerie sound of silence." Indeed, the soldiers sang carols together. Silent Night was sung in several languages. No one knew why the truce started, but 2/3 of the fighting forces participated, over 100,000 troops. One of the young soldiers wrote, I then came to the conclusion that I have held very firmly ever since, that if it had been left up to ourselves, there would never have been another shot fired." What happened in those 2 days, and some troops held the truce till New Year, the warring factions realized that they shared a story. They shared a feeling of communal celebration that was stronger than the conflict in which they were involved for that brief moment in time. We who live more than 100 years later in a much more cynical age, we sometimes wonder why the Christmas story is important at all anymore. Why we even bother with these old stories. Why we even still celebrate. We think the story no longer has meaning. And indeed, if stories are not shared, do not have communal context, they do get forgotten. Their meaning lost or subverted, the contextual history perverted for larger struggles of wealth and power. Our reading this morning by UU minister Kendall Gibbons reminds us the story of Christmas is subversive. And it was a subversive story in its own time. It was about flipping the script of power. In the previous verses in the Gospel of Luke to those which we heard this evening, in what was called the Magnificat, we hear the preamble to the birth story. God has scattered the proud, has brought down the powerful from their thrones, has lifted up the lowly, filled the hungry with good things, and sent the rich away empty. Subversive words indeed, even for our time. And then we have the birth. The titles for Jesus found in this passage, Messiah and Savior, were also names used for Caesar. We see the lowliest, the most vulnerable, held up as the most powerful. And the angels appear before shepherds, at least in this narrative, not to kings, not to the highborn, but to those working people in the fields. And they proclaim peace on earth. It is a story about who is important, though not necessarily who you might think. And where do the shepherds find Jesus? In the humblest of dwellings, not a palace. God has lifted up the lowly. This story of birth, of the aspiration of peace on earth when that possibility was far from certain, the possibility of an exchange of power from the most powerful to the most vulnerable, in the most humble of settings. Sometimes we may ask, why do we keep telling this story? Year after year, decade after decade, century after century. Maybe it's because we still haven't learned the lesson. We have to keep reminding ourselves what it was about. It is no coincidence that many of our Christmas carols and songs were written in response to war and violence. Silent Night in 1818 in response to the Napoleonic Wars. I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, 1863, in response to the Civil War. Do You Hear What I Hear, 1962, in response to the Cuban Missile Crisis. All written as a plea for peace. They keep trying to remind us of the central message of the story. And so we read the story again and again to remind ourselves that though peace on earth is aspirational, we always have it as a possibility. When we bring peace into our own lives, when we move aside the clutter and detritus and sit in silence, live in silence, we make room for a larger peace. The poet Bonnie Thurston wrote this poem that struck me the first time I read it, and so I've read it over and over again. It's called Silent Night. The old tradition says at Christ's borning, there was utter silence. The whole world was still. For an hour, even choirs of angels went quiet. It seems fitting in the infant face of incomprehensibility to forego language, sound, even song, into still Nacht, that tiny spark, the word, dropped into flesh, set afire everything we thought we knew about God. Amen, and blessed be.
Let's rise again in body or spirit and sing the first Noel.
Thank you.
So now, we're going to turn off the lights. You should have gotten a candle when you entered this evening. Does everybody have a candle? Okay, good. We will light your candles from our candles until the whole sanctuary is lit by candlelight. As we do this, we will sing Silent Night. The lyrics, I hope, will appear on the screen in front. The handbells will play the first verse and will remain silent, and then we will join in the singing. So I'd like to call my worship associates up. And light your candles. And so these four will light your candles, the end of the aisle, and then you move the light out down the aisle, down the rows. All rise and sing.
Holy
this evening is by Howard Thurman. Now the work of Christmas begins. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star is gone, when the kings and princes have gone home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among all people, to make music in the heart.
Okay. There we go. All right. I am Meagan Pitluck-Schmitt with the UCR board. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you to the service participants, the staff for this special Christmas Eve service. Note that there will not be a coffee hour after the service. I hope you've made other plans. And as a reminder, we will not be holding a worship service next Sunday, December 31st. Please look for an email this week with information about pre-recorded worship service options. Before our final carol of the evening, I want to extend holiday wishes to each and every one of you. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and since we won't see you, Happy New Year's as well. I think we are ready.
Please join us in singing our final carol, Joy to the World. And just before we do that, I would like to thank our very special guest artist, Maria Carvell, for playing the trumpet with us today.